Two of your potential opponents, Sam Caligiuri and Rob Simmons, have called you out of touch. And some of the voters say they haven't seen you around the district as much as you used to be, but lately you have been. And so the big question is, they're going to say, what have you done for me lately?
Yeah.
So what have you done for them lately?
Well, it's not just what I've done lately. I take maybe the greatest pride of things like the sub base. We're over keeping that place alive twice, and the work I did at Electric Boat over the years, the jobs there, as well as at Sikorsky and other of our major facilities, although bad news the other day with 11,000 job loss. The Family Medical Leave Act, there's still an awful lot of people, around 60 million in this country, that take advantage of being with their child during a sick period. Working hard on trying to see to it the foreclosure issues. I was with this morning with Samantha Moore, who watched her credit card rates go from, I think, 11% to 27%, and her amount of that she could borrow from $31,000 out of $4,000. Those people are struggling. The woman I was with this afternoon in Manchester, who laid off from the Hartford Current after 21 years and went through a grieving period, lost all her confidence, her family was shattered, trying to get back on her feet again. Those are the things that people want to see you working at. And so we're back here a lot. We had the healthcare forums. I've done 3 of them in the state. I've just mentioned 2. We had 700 at one, 500, 400 at the other. We've got another one coming up. In fact, Kathleen Sebelius, the new designee to be the head of Health and Human Services, has offered to come up to the state. The Secretary of Housing is going to come up and spend a day with me here in Connecticut as we look at housing needs and the foreclosure issues in the state. So I'm back here every week, back here as often as we can, because people need, at a time like this, to see you around working on their issues. Something you and I talked about earlier in the show, and that is, look, I know the politics, and I've been around long enough to appreciate it. We're in the season. Used to have seasons to this. Now there's a permanent campaign ongoing. And the Republican National Committee's targeted me, and I understand that. That's where a lot of this is coming from. But people really at home here now, I can tell you, they want to know if you're working on their problems. Am I going to get my job back? What about my retirement? Afford my kids' education? And those are the issues I really need to weigh in on, and am weighing in on their behalf. That's the job I need to be doing.
What's the mood of the voters that you're encountering?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure not everyone who's polled goes to these events that you are at. So, I mean, are you getting any hostile people at all?
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
And what are they saying? Well,
you run the gamut. I think people, the very mildest in a way is anxiousness, to put it mildly. That same person within a space of a minute can go from anxious to fury, what they see. When they see executives, for instance, at some of these major facilities that are getting their tax dollars, Merrill Lynch, for instance, the 700 of their top executives took bonuses of excess of $5 million. And I offered the language on the floor of the Senate that bans that kind of executive compensation and golden parachutes at a time they're getting these TARP monies, these federal dollars going to their coffers. I'm not hostile to them, but the insensitivity, that will drive people, Dennis, I can't even begin to describe to you the level of anger people sense if other people are living off their tax dollars while they're losing their jobs. So, but they also, I think, are still want to be optimistic. They have a lot of confidence in Barack Obama. His numbers are very high, as I think we both recognize polling numbers. They trust him. They believe he can create the change they're looking for. And that to me, that optimism, and the one word that I wish I could create tomorrow is confidence. Confidence in ourselves, confidence in our country, confidence we're going to get back on our feet again. And our job, all of us, whether we're in the media or in public life, an average citizen, is to do everything we can together to get this right. I don't believe in hyperbole, Dennis, but I think we're in one of the 4 or 5 moments in our nation's history when the decisions we make over the coming days, and I mean that, coming days and weeks, could largely determine the kind of country my 2 little girls and your child are going to grow up in. And that's not hyperbole, that's a fact. And so we really need to come together. They're going to write about us and talk about us and what we did on our watch right now to get this right. And elections are 2 years away from now almost. And the decisions we make over the next coming months will largely determine not just elections, but what kind of a country we are. And that's my job, to do everything I can to see to it I do my part to get us back on track again.
Let's shift gears and talk about your colleague, Joe Lieberman.
Yeah.
You folks made up. Sort of, you know, I mean, you're always friends, but it was difficult.
It was awkward, put it mildly.
So he's now going to support you in 2010 as you run for re-election.
And I'm grateful to him for that. I appreciate that very much.
Would you commit to supporting him in 2012, even if he's challenged by a Democrat, or does he have to come back into the party?
No, he could. He's come back, and I think that's important. That was I got up and spoke for Joe at the Democratic caucus in the old Senate chamber in December, and when there was a motion to whether or not Joe ought to be allowed back in or should he be allowed into the caucus. And I stood up and I talked about my colleague that I'd known for 40 years, who on a whole host of issues has been tremendously mainstream when it came to Democratic Party politics. He had a deep disagreement with the mainstream of the Democratic Party over the Iraq War. But this is a person who wants to come back into the family. And I grew up in a kind of a family with, maybe that's a big family. You have members that stray from time to time. When they say they want to come back home, open the door. And you shut a door on that. I think you make a huge mistake. So Joe said he wants back in, wants to be a part of that. He's been very constructive and very helpful over the last several weeks in the Senate on some major issues. And we need to move forward and look forward.
Briefly, because we only have about 30 seconds left, whether you win, lose, whatever happens, some say what's happened in the past several months has made you a better senator. Do you agree?
Well, it reminds you, listen, no one's indispensable. Anybody who tells you that you're the indispensable figure, you're not. And I think it's, wakes you up a little bit. Understand what people are thinking about. I think people want to see me do well. There's some, obviously, who would love to see me destroyed one way or the other. That's the Rush Limbaughs and others who talk about personal destruction of people. I think most people are kind of sick of that kind of politics. They want to know what I stand for, what I'm doing, am I making a difference? And the idea of just tearing each other apart all the time has a constituency. There's certain people who like that. But I'll tell you, if you engage in that kind of politics for the next 2 years in this state, I don't care what office you run for, you will not enjoy the favor of the people of this state. They want to hear what your ideas are, what you would do to make a difference. And that's the only way I've ever run through these elections in the past, and that's the way I intend to run this year.
What's the timeline for you? When do you think you'll make a final decision on whether you're going to run?
Well, I've made a decision to run.
So you're definitely running, but when will it begin?
I'd wait a long time on this. Again, I think people say, he's just a candidate running. I think you hurt yourself and hurt the cause of what you're trying to do. There's a season for it still in my mind, and that'll happen. But it's not we haven't arrived at that in my view yet. Others I know have arrived at and see the season here already. But I'll wait a while before I'll do that.
Senator Chris Dodd, nice to see you.
Dennis,
Thanks for coming on Face the State. We'll have you back on here again.